Y'all, let me tell you why a lot of Black people sympathize and support Carmelo Anthony. It's because growing up, psychologically, they were treated just like Austin Metcalf, meaning that when they did wrong, they were harmed and they were abused and they were disciplined with excess force. Yeah, a lot of Black people harm their children, beat their children, discipline their children way beyond what's considered just, and they justify it by a lot of times using the Bible. They like to say, spare the rod, spoil the child, and they swear that it's a whip. A rod is something that you guide your sheep with. Okay, whenever you saw the Messiah, picture Christ the Messiah, he always has a rod. Moses has a rod. You know, a lot of shepherds had rods depicted back in the day, and that's to guide the flock. It was never to beat the sheep. And so a lot of people use this to justify, if you don't beat your kids, this is what's going to happen. They're going to be, you see what I'm saying? They're going to be misguided out in the world. And, it's like all you need to do is talk to your children. That's all you need to do. From an early age, talk to your children when they're in your womb, mothers, and then continue talking to them while they're outside. Even as newborns, you're shaping your child, you're talking to your child, you're giving them logic, love. You see what I'm saying? Like disciplining your children with excess force only hardens them. I have a lot of people in my life who I grew up with who were disciplined in this kind of way, and they're awful people. Like, they didn't care about getting disciplined. They would do something wrong purposely, knowing what was to come, and they still did it. Like, they're like, oh, I'm just going to get my whooping and go. Like, parents, you have to talk to your children. And I can tell that Carmelo grew up in a house with a similar fashion. I can tell that Carmelo Anthony had a lot of discipline, with excess force on him, and then have his parents justify it. Why do I say this? Because look at what he did. Look at what he did. He provoked the situation. He agitated, he aggravated, he escalated, he did everything but walk away. Okay. And this is what a lot of parents do. A lot of parents in the Black community do not, wait to a time where they're level-headed to discipline their children. They just, they use all of their might, they use all of their force, and it's not justified. But in their house, in their rules, this is how they treat their children. Okay. And this just extends to people in general. We're not supposed to harm our children. I do not harm my child. I do not discipline my child physically, just because, and she is angelic. My child is, such great understanding. And that's by the grace of God. God is first. Whenever we sin, whenever we do wrong, do you think God is striking us with a lightning bolt? No, it's called free will. And we have to remember that we're not our children's gods. We're their parents who make mistakes, and we are not allowed to use excessive force on our children. I don't even believe in physically disciplining kids. I don't believe in that. And thank God I never had to resort to that. Okay. No judge zone to those who do. Slightly, because again, talking goes a long way. Logic, reasoning, understanding, having sympathy, having empathy with your children goes a long way, because you have to remember they are people who are growing up, and they don't have the criterion yet. They don't have the discipline that, we have. They don't have the understanding. They're still being shaped, and you have to give them mercy. Okay. And how Carmelo acted was without mercy. And a lot of Black people who support Carmelo was raised in a household with abusive fathers and mothers who use too much force. And I've seen it so many times. I've heard horror stories in the Black community where they use, extension cords and fly swatters and hangers and just all kinds of things to harm their children. And they think this is okay. They think this is okay and it's excessive. And then you see what I'm saying? Like, it's the same mind frame that Carmelo had. He used that same mind frame. I'm gonna do what I need to do to you, and I'm gonna immediately, cry wolf and become the victim, because parents love to say, see, you made me do that. They will literally tell their children, if you didn't do this, I wouldn't have to do this to you. If you didn't act out in this way, or you didn't make this mistake. A lot of Black parents whoop their children for spilling things, for accidents. You see what I'm saying? And they know it's wrong. They know it's wrong. And the only person who wants you to beat your children is Satan. That's it and that's all. That's it and that's all, okay? And going further, I was making another video about Valeria Perez. Who is she? Because she is actually in the middle of all this. I want to address something else, because when I delve deeper into what happened that day at that track meet, I don't think that it was just Carmelo being a killer and wanting to, having the plan to take someone's life. I don't think that was prevalent on his mind, but there was some insecurities at play here. There was some egos going haywire, especially Carmelo Anthony's, because court stated that Carmelo Anthony's girlfriend and Eddie Parra are not really cousins. They are long childhood friends. Okay, so we know that there's a history there. Carmelo was just being insecure. A lot of people are insecure about their partners, friends of the opposite sex. And this is no different. And they hang out with them like I said, if a girl is having a guy and the guy is liking another girl, a girl will easily hang out with that girl to imitate her, to study her, to keep a close watch on her, to pretend to be her friend. And a lot of times it's just to convince herself that I'm not in competition with her. I'm not insecure. Like, we're friends. I can be his friend's friend. Like, I'm not going to control him and all these other things. It's a fake relationship. And I like to use Yolanda Saldivar and Selena as a perfect example for this, because a lot of people were like, they were friends. So what sense did it make? They have pictures together. So why would Eddie invite him over there and blah, blah, blah? Do y'all not understand how Selena got taken out of this world by Yolanda Saldivar, who was right there in her pictures, in her business, taking care of her money? You see what I'm saying? Keeping your friends close and enemies closer is a thing that people actually do. Should we do that? No, because that's just illogical. Why would you do that? Okay? If they're your enemies, they're meant to harm you, and you need to put space. So Eddie Parra and, I said his name so white, Eddie Parra and Valeria Perez, they were not cousins by blood. This came out in court testimony for all of you guys who are saying that they were cousins. No, they weren't. So this hints to the insecurity, because Eddie said he only hung out with that girl when he only hung out with Carmelo when that girl was around. So there were insecurities there, because Eddie's Hispanic like her. He's known her and her family for a very long time. He's hanging around them. Triangulation. Why are you hanging around this girl and that's not really your cousin? Have some respect and back away. It just doesn't make any sense. Eddie was jealous of Carmelo as well. They weren't all friends, and we saw that at the track meet. He didn't vouch for Carmelo to stay. He didn't tell Austin to be like, hey, man, it's cool. I'm pretty sure Austin knew that Eddie was seeing Carmelo's girlfriend behind his back. Because let's say, hypothetically, if they had dated a long time ago, maybe like in the third grade, because they're in high school at this point, you're not going to make a scene or trip about an old fling if y'all are just sincerely friends at this point. If it was just a childhood love affair, where they just had a puppy love crush, okay, it would have been fine. But when she was not around, you see the real dynamic being played out. Because Eddie said they never hung out alone, him and Carmelo. That's what he said on the stand. If they were friends outside of that girl, there wouldn't have been an issue. And I feel that Carmelo knew that. I think Carmelo had his suspicions, okay? And I think that he was the butt of the joke that day, and he felt that. Carmelo felt as if Eddie had told other people like Austin and Hunter, and they like he was the butt of the joke, and this is where the ego stepped in. Okay? And this leads back to psychologically at home, and I was talking about the abuse in a lot of Black homes. Psychologically, these people are bullied. They're bullied at homes. They're harmed without right. They are being disciplined with excessive force that cannot be justified. And who is there to save them and say, hey, don't do that to your kids? Because parents love to say, hey, this is my child, stay out of it, whatever. You see what I'm saying? And he carried that psychology around. So when it came to a situation where his ego was on the line, because once you do that to your Black sons, you're killing their ego, you're breaking their ego, and they have something to prove now because they're weak inside their home. They're not uplifted in their homes. Whenever you do this to your children, you are breaking them down psychologically. You're breaking their spirit. You're killing their spirit when you're doing this, when you're hitting your children. Okay? And this is what happens. So now they have to be tough guy, and they're displaying that same language. They're displaying that same behavior outside of the home. And so they're trying to basically regain balance and regain their power outside of the home because they're walking around with that inner shame. They're walking around like, this is how I'm treated and I have to prove myself to people. And Carmelo felt like he had to prove himself because, one, he glorified that relationship with that girl. She was not Black. Carmelo has a Black mother. If Black mothers treated their sons better, you would see a lot more of these men marrying Black women. See, this is an issue that we talk a lot about on TikTok, but nobody really wants to nip things in the bud, okay? This is what it is. I'm breaking it down psychologically. That girl was the core of this. This is a love story gone wrong, and Austin knew that Eddie and Carmelo weren't really friends. He knew that this girl was in between. You see what I'm saying? And Austin put himself in harm's way and was just like, hey, don't worry, bro. Like, I got this. I'll get him out of here. You know what I'm saying? It was things that were unsaid. They were unspoken. And this is why it wasn't brought up in court. Because how is Carmelo going to say, oh, I was over there because, I'm insecure about Eddie and we're not really friends. And see what I'm saying? That's why he was trying to use Eddie as like the person that he knew under that tent. But when it came to hanging out with Eddie's circle for real and around the men that Eddie respect, his actual colleagues in high school, no, that wasn't finna happen. And they let Carmelo know real quick. And Carmelo might have thought it was all good. You see what I'm saying? But why would you think it's all good to hang out with a guy who's friends with your girlfriend? He knew that there was some tension there. He knew. But it's just like Yolanda and Selena. You go and you hang out because you're insecure or jealous of someone, you see? But it's even worse because a girl is involved. There was no man involved with Selena and Yolanda. Does that make sense? I'm hoping I'm making sense to you guys because this humanizes Carmelo in a way. Like, because before I got into this, I'm like, this guy's crazy. This guy's a psychopath. This guy, and he's still low-key he still is because look at what he did. But I'm just trying to break it down because it humanizes him psychologically, why he had so much to prove, and it breaks down the emotion of that day and what was going on. And Austin just being relentless and just like, because if it were all cool really between him and Eddie, then why was there such a need for Austin to like get him away from the tent? Because Austin and Eddie were really friends and they knew each other and they were really like brothers. And Eddie and Carmelo were not. How can you be brothers when you met through your girlfriend? Think about it, guys. I just want you to put two and two together. Like, yeah, thanks for listening.